All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're kind of, trading in our office chairs for racing seats.
Yeah. I figured.
We're diving into the world of the CF Moto 750 SR. This new sport bike, man, it's generating a lot of buzz, and we're gonna
Yeah.
see what all the fuss is about.
Right. Yeah. The source material for this deep dive is a brand new article from Biker Motor Rider, posted today, December 12th, 2024. The title is 2025 Indelyu CF Moto 750 SR officially introduced. 4 cylinders, 111 horsepower.
Wow.
So whether you're thinking about adding a new motorcycle to your garage, or just staying on top of the latest motorcycle tech, this is the deep dive for you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's talk specs. The CF Moto 750 SR, it has a 693cc parallel twin engine. It's cranking out 73.8 horsepower.
Hmm.
Now, I know some people might be like, oh, anything under 100 horsepower, whatever, but I think this is actually a pretty smart move for a few reasons.
Yeah, so what's interesting here is that this horsepower, it kind of puts the 750 SR in reach of a lot more riders, right? I mean, it's got enough
Yeah.
power to keep, seasoned riders engaged, but it's not so crazy that it's going to like scare off new riders.
Yeah, yeah.
And plus this engine size is kind of perfect for licensing and insurance in a lot of places.
Oh, licensing. That's a really good point. I didn't even think about that.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond accessibility, like, how easy it is to get into, the article also talks about how smooth the engine is,
Right.
talking about seamless throttle response, optimal fuel efficiency.
Right.
That sounds like a lot of fun, whether you're, out in the canyons carving it up or just like commuting to work.
Yeah, that's exactly what CF Moto is going for, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just a track weapon,
Yeah.
It's something you could enjoy in lots of different situations.
Totally.
And speaking of practicality, did you see that weight?
You mean the 196 kilograms? 432 pounds for us Americans?
Yeah.
That's super light for a bike in this class. Think about how nimble that would be, like flicking through traffic or just leaning into a corner.
Yeah, and we're going to compare this weight to its competition later on. But you're right, CF Moto really focused on agility here. They even said that the chassis is made for optimal weight distribution, makes it more stable and more responsive.
Ooh, I'm already sold. And then there's the price, $7,500. That's a really good deal, especially when you think about all the tech that this bike has.
Yeah, speaking of the tech, the article mentions it has a TFT display, multiple riding modes, including Sport and Rain
Yeah.
and ABS. I mean, these features aren't like brand new, but it is impressive to see them at this price.
Okay, so break down those riding modes for me. Sport, I get it. Go fast. But rain mode seems kind of essential for a bike this light, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You got to think of rain mode as a safety net,
Sure.
especially for newer riders. It adjusts the throttle and how the power comes on to make the bike easier to control and more predictable in like slippery conditions. Helps prevent those, oh no
Mm-hmm.
moments
Yeah.
when you hit a wet patch of road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smart. That makes a lot of sense. And for someone like me who's not a tech wizard but still likes some gadgets, it's good to have options. But let's move past just the specs on paper. What's the 750 SR like to actually ride?
So, according to the article, the 750 SR is as agile and responsive as they claim. That lightweight chassis combined with that high-tech suspension, they're using inverted forks up front.
Ooh, nice.
It all makes for super precise handling and really confident cornering.
Inverted forks. Fancy. That's usually something you see on more expensive bikes.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a bike that's not just affordable, but also really well equipped to, have some fun.
Exactly. And we don't know everything about the suspension yet, but it's clear that CF Moto really listened to what riders want. And they tried to make a bike that's both sporty and, forgiving.
Forgiving, like it won't punish me for little mistakes.
Exactly.
Say music to my ears.
It's supposed to make you feel confident, whether you're, going all out at a track day or just cruising around.
Now, hold on. Let's not forget about the brakes. Those are just as important as the engine when you're, riding a bit sportily.
Yeah, for sure.
So what do we have?
So the article doesn't really get into the braking system, which is kind of a bummer, but it does say that it's got dual front discs and a single rear disc, which is like the standard for a bike like this. The real question is, are they just basic calipers or did they go for something a little more, high performance?
Right. It would be great to know if they went with like radial calipers. Those give you way better feel and stopping power. Hopefully we'll find out more about that later. But for now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the competition. Because the 750 SR isn't the only bike in town.
Right. The mid-range sport bike market, man, it's a tough crowd out there. A lot of competition. So how does this CF Moto, how does it stack up against the big boys?
Well, the article actually it gives us this nice comparison table that puts the 750 SR up against like all its rivals,
Okay. Yeah.
including, some names you've definitely heard of, like the Kawasaki Ninja 650,
Yeah.
the Yamaha R7.
Right. And just going by like, the numbers on the page, the 750 SR does pretty well for itself. The horsepower and torque numbers are right there, especially for the price.
Yeah.
But there are some areas where the other bikes do a little better.
Yeah, I noticed that like the Honda CBR 500R, that one's got a bit more horsepower, and the Suzuki GSX 8S has a bigger engine, more torque.
Right.
But aren't we kind of missing the bigger picture here, just looking at like numbers on a page?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not just about, horsepower and torque. It's about like the whole feel of the bike,
Yeah.
the experience, and how it matches, you and how you like to ride.
Okay, so let's dig into that a little bit. The article, it talks about the 750 SR having exceptional handling and stability, thanks to that lightweight chassis and the fancy suspension. So how does that actually like translate into, riding it?
So imagine, right, you're leaning into a corner.
Okay.
And you can just like change direction so easily because the 750 SR is so responsive.
Yeah.
But the suspension, it keeps everything like planted and stable.
Yeah.
It's that feeling of being totally in control, just like flowing through the turns.
Ooh, yeah, I can almost feel it. But wait, isn't there a chance that a bike this light could get, I don't know, kind of twitchy at high speeds or if it's windy?
That's a good point, something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
But the article does say that CF Moto, they did things to prevent that.
Okay.
They talk about the bike being aerodynamic, so it cuts through the wind. And they also mentioned a steering damper, which helps to keep the front steady.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Sounds like they really thought this through.
Yeah.
But let's bring back those other bikes, those competitors for a second.
Okay.
How does the 750 SR compare to like riding the Ninja 650 or the Yamaha R7?
So the Ninja 650, it's known for being very beginner friendly, very forgiving. It's smooth and predictable, easy to handle.
Right.
That's why a lot of new riders like it. But the Yamaha R7, now that's a bit more aggressive.
Okay.
It's got a more powerful engine and a sportier riding position. So it's for riders who, want a little more oomph.
Gotcha. So where does the CF Moto fit in all of this?
Well, from what the article says, it sounds like it's kind of in the middle. It's got that agility and responsiveness.
But let's talk about something that doesn't always get enough attention. Ownership. Nobody wants a bike that's going to be a pain to take care of. Right?
That is so true. And luckily, the article actually does talk about the ownership experience, and it sounds pretty good.
Okay.
They say that the 750 SR is really easy to maintain. Regular oil changes, cleaning the chain, checking the brakes, basic stuff that every bike needs.
So nothing too crazy or intimidating for someone who's, maybe new to motorcycling.
Exactly. And CF Moto, they actually provide like really detailed manuals and online resources.
That's great.
To help owners, do some of the basic maintenance themselves.
I love that because for me, part of the joy of owning a motorcycle is getting to like tinker with it myself.
Yeah.
Learn how it all works.
Right.
But of course, sometimes you need like a professional.
Mm-hmm.
So what about dealer support and warranty? What's that like?
Well, they mentioned that CF Moto, they've been working on expanding their dealer network and improving their customer support. And they're offering a pretty good warranty on the 750 SR. So, you can have some peace of mind.
Okay, so it sounds like, the overall ownership experience is pretty positive.
Yeah.
But let's zoom out a little bit and look at the bigger picture, because this bike, it's not just about CF Moto, it's about like the whole motorcycle industry and how it's changing.
It is, isn't it? I mean, it's really interesting to see CF Moto, a Chinese brand, doing so well.
Yeah.
For a long time, they were seen as like the cheaper option compared to the Japanese and European brands.
Right.
But the 750 SR, this is different.
Totally. They're not just like trying to catch up anymore. They're innovating. They've got style. They've got performance. And they're doing it at a price that's like making everyone else nervous.
Exactly. The big companies like Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, they're definitely paying attention.
Right.
They can't just sit back anymore. They gotta step up their game if they want to stay competitive.
It's kind of like a rising tide lifts all boats. Like this competition from CF Moto is actually good for everyone in the end. Better bikes, more choices for riders.
Exactly. And it's not just the big brands either. Think about the smaller companies, the niche brands. They got to get even more creative
Right.
to stand out in a market that's like getting more and more crowded.
Okay, so we've talked about the CF Moto 750 SR. We've, looked at all the specs, compared it to the competition, and talked about how it might change the whole industry. But before we wrap things up, I want to go back to something you said earlier about CF Moto, and how
Yeah.
they're doing so well, and what that means for the motorcycle world.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, right? We're like watching this whole power shift. These new brands like CF Moto, they're really challenging the old guard, and I think it's only going to get more intense
Yeah.
in the next few years.
So, what does this mean for riders like us? Is it all good, or are there like some downsides to all this disruption?
Well, I think the good stuff is pretty obvious, right? More competition, you usually get better products, lower prices, more innovation.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're already seeing that with the 750 SR. This is a bike that like wouldn't have existed a few years ago.
Hmm.
And it's really pushing the limits of what you can get for the price.
Right, I totally agree. It's exciting to see these new companies kind of raising the bar.
Mm-hmm.
But is there a chance that like some of those big brands, the ones that have been around forever, might have trouble keeping up?
Yeah, that's always a possibility, right? Especially for the companies that are slow to change. I mean, we've seen it happen in other industries. Those companies that used to be on top, they get overtaken by like the faster, more innovative companies.
Mm.
But I think the big motorcycle companies, they know what's up.
Mm.
And they're investing a lot in like research and new tech.
That's good to hear. I'd hate to see like some of those classic brands disappear.
Yeah.
But speaking of new tech, what do you think is next for motorcycles? Are we going to have like flying motorcycles? Self-driving bikes?
Uh-huh. Flying motorcycles. Maybe not quite yet. But there's some cool things happens with like electric bikes,
Yeah.
connectivity, rider aids.
Mm-hmm.
We're already seeing electric motorcycles that are faster than gas bikes. And I think, that's just going to keep going. Electric bikes could get better and better.
Yeah, the electric revolution is coming for motorcycles for sure. But what about those rider aids? I'm not sure how I feel about having too much tech on a bike. Doesn't that kind of like take away from the pure experience of riding?
Yeah, I get that. I think there's definitely like a balance you got to find. But when you use it right, those rider aids can actually make riding safer
Yeah.
and more fun. Things like traction control, cornering ABS, even adaptive cruise control. That stuff can help prevent accidents and make riding less stressful,
Yeah.
especially in, tough conditions.
So it's not about like replacing the rider. It's
Yeah.
more about giving the rider like better tools to manage risk and improve their skills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in the end, I think technology, it's going to play a bigger and bigger role in motorcycles. But the core of it, the freedom, the thrill, the feeling of being connected to the machine, that'll always be there.
Yeah, I like that. And I'm really curious to see where it all goes. Maybe in a few years we'll be doing a deep dive on like a flying electric motorcycle.
Now, that'll be a deep dive I wouldn't want to miss.
So as we wrap up this deep dive on the CF Moto 750 SR, what are like the big takeaways for our listeners?
Well, I think the main thing is the motorcycle industry, it's changing fast. New brands like CF Moto, they're shaking things up, which means more competition, more innovation, more choices for riders.
Yeah.
And the 750 SR, it's just one example of this, right?
Yeah.
But it shows us that the whole industry is going in this direction.
Yeah, it's an exciting time to be into motorcycles, and who knows what kind of amazing bikes we'll be riding in the future. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the CF Moto 750 SR. And as always, ride safe, stay curious, and we'll catch you next time.